Exposed enemy king. If your enemy's king is exposed, sometimes you can just checkmate them.
Watch. G4. Get the bishop out.
I'm just gonna play simple chess. I'm just putting my pawn in the center of the board. Nothing
Okay.
secret.
I move my... She's not gonna see this fucking coming.
Flat.
In this position, even though black is up 2 knights and a rook, the black king is too exposed, which leads to a forced checkmate in 3 moves. In this position, however, black king is super safe and cozy, so sacrificing all pieces to go all in for an attack is a very, very bad idea.
No, not my bath time.
Windmill. The windmill tactic typically involves a rook and a bishop, where the rook swings back and forth, capturing material on each swing. It's a devastating and often game-ending sequence. Zwischenzug. Zwischenzug, or in-between move, surprises opponents by inserting an unexpected move within a seemingly forced sequence. Castle before move 10. While you can technically wait till move 69 to castle and deliver a castle checkmate,
Check here in castles.
Wait, I've
You
never
saw
even
it.
seen this game. What?
don't try that at home. You'll most likely get f***ed and be delivered home in an ambulance. Just castle early and get checkmated like Magnus.
No.
Killbox mate. This checkmate pattern occurs when a rook and queen work together to checkmate the enemy king in a 3x3 box shape. In this position, white's bishop is in the way of the checkmate, so black sacrifices the rook, and then delivers killbox mate with the other rook. Isolated pawns are good targets. An isolated pawn is a pawn that is lonely as f*** and is left behind by all his friends.
I'll choose you!
In this position, this pawn is looking real sad and lonely. If you're thinking, oh, but it has 2 defenders, should be enough to stop the 2 attackers, you are suffering from a low elo syndrome, and should either jump off the bridge, or continue watching my videos to bring your elo up. Black pushes d5. If white takes the pawn, then he loses the rook. So he's pretty much toasted and will lose the game shortly. Here's another example. The pawn on g3 is isolated, and basically a living target for black. What does black do? f4, goodbye white.
Not even close, baby!
Peace movement. A pawn goes 1 square forward, captures diagonally, and can move 2 squares on the first move. A knight keeps taking L's, and hops around in L shapes around the board. The bishop moves diagonally. Rooks move horizontally and vertically, and the queen combines the way rooks and bishops move. The king moves 1 square at a time, and can move to any of the 8 squares it is touching. Doubled pawns. Doubled pawns are 2 pawns of the same color on the same file, one behind the other.
Bro, stop touching me with your hands.
That's not my hands.
In rook endings, cut off your opponent's king. If a rook is the only piece you have in an endgame, you want to cut off your opponent's king immediately, to stop him from gobbling all of your pawns up, and you're good to go. In this situation, as you see, white has successfully blocked the black king off, and black can't do anything about the fact that the epic king and pawn are coming to promote and smash the black king. Pay attention to your opponent's queen. The queen is giga powerful. That's exactly why you never want to lose sight of your opponent's queen. In this position, black is too focused on attacking white's king, and forget to watch out for the white's queen. He ends up paying for it. Oopsie.
Never lose sight of the Black Queen, kids.
Relocate a knight to an outpost. An outpost is a square where your knight can chill nice and cozy without being attacked by your opponent's pawns. At the same time, your knight will be able to control a shit ton of squares and be super powerful while being protected. In this position, putting the knight on d5 is super strong because it blocks the king's retreat square, and can't be chased away by any pawns or bishops. Escape from a pin. When someone pins you, what do? Some might say just punch them in the nuts and run. While I approve of this method, there's a much less violent way. In this position, your knight is pinned while the black pawn is trying to mess it up. Instead of crying and thinking you've lost your poor knight, you can just push your a-pawn and threaten your opponent's bishop. He'll retreat and you attack him again while covering your knight. Now he runs away, and your knight is safe. Double isolated pawns are even better targets. If an isolated pawn is bad, double isolated pawns are double bad.
Are you sure about that?
In this position, these two pawns are kinda useless, because they can't do anything to protect each other, and will be captured one by one. And white will lose the game. This is too bad because if the white pawn is just on one square to the left, white would win easily. Deal with an attack on the flank with an attack on the center. In this position, black is attempting to launch an attack on the right flank because the white king is castled. What white can do is to strike back in the center, because the black king is not yet castled, and things will look really bad for black really fast. No queen too early. The queen is so powerful that if you move her out early, she'll be threatened to get smashed and you'll need to move her again. For example, in this position, the queen gets hit by the knight, and then it gets hit again by another knight. You move the queen multiple times, and let your opponent develop their pieces. This is dumb. Don't do that. Simplification. Simplification is the act of exchanging pieces with your opponent to make the game less complicated. This is particularly useful when you're up on materials, and want to convert to a win. In this situation, white is ahead in material. But knights can be tricky, especially when in time trouble. So to avoid having to watch out for potential forks all the time, white decides to trade down into a winning endgame position. This is a very smart decision as winning this endgame is very mechanical and can be done without much thinking. Desperado. A desperado piece is one that is already doomed to be captured.
Your time has come, buddy.
But seeks to inflict maximum damage before being taken off the board.
If I'm going down, you're going down with me.
Oh,
In this position, the knight is already trapped, so might as well grab a pawn with it.
Pillsbury mate. In this checkmate, the bishop controls the corner square of the castled king, while the rook delivers a mate on the open file. In this situation, if black moves the rook back, white will block the check by pushing the pawn, so black sacrifices the rook to lure the king out and deliver the checkmate.
Use all your pieces. If you have a piece that's just chilling in the back, you're likely doing it wrong. Use all your pieces and thank me later.
Guys, I told you, you gotta bring everybody to the party. You gotta bring them all to the party.
One pawn can stop two pawns. Sometimes one pawn can be a gigachad and stop two pawns on his own. In this position, white plays pawn to h5. This pawn basically freezes the two black pawns, as if the g pawn goes to g6, it'll be captured, and white will promote first. If the g pawn goes to g5, white can play en passant, and then promote first. So now this is really good because white can beat up black on the left side, due to having more pawns. White is completely winning. Annotation. Annotation is commentary added to a game's moves, often including symbols and text to explain strategies, tactics, and errors.
Hey, White King, wanna go play some chess?
Nah, I'm busy analyzing my mistakes.
Closed and open files. A file is closed when it is blocked by pawns from both players, and open when it has no pawns of either color. Castling. Castling is a special rule that allows your king to hide in a more secure spot, and your rook to come out to play at the same time. It can be done either on the king side, which is called short castling, or on the queen side, which is called long castling. The king moves two squares towards the rook, and the rook moves on the square next to the king on the opposite side. Minority attack. This concept proves that size does not matter. The minority attack consists of pushing pawns on the side where we have fewer pawns to break the opponent's pawn structure. In this position, white plays b4 with the intention of playing b5 next to shattering black's pawn chain. This technique is not seen very often in low elo games, but once you get to higher elo, you'll see it more often. Double hand promotion. You can only promote a piece if you use the same hand to push the pawn, remove the pawn, put a new queen in, and then click the clock all with the same hand. Be patient. Many people think that you gotta become the Hulk and immediately smash your opponent ASAP in the middle game, but that ain't the case. It's much better if you just chill and make solid moves and wait for your opponent to make a mistake. When you play like this, you're gonna be able to smack your opponent up as soon as he makes a mistake. For example here, you could play pawn to h3. This is a very solid move cause it gives your bishop and knight space to chill and jump around in a square for your king to go if he needs to. Don't move the same piece twice in the opening. If you move the same piece twice, what the hell you doing with your life? Develop quick, control the scene, don't waste your turns, be bold and mean. Anyways, if you move a piece twice, you're not developing quickly enough. Unless you're Hikura Nakamura, stick to this principle. Rooks on the 7th. Placing rooks on the 7th rank can be a devastating tactic, as they can attack pawns and pieces, cut off the enemy king, and coordinate with each other to threaten checkmate. Avoid bad bishops. A bad bishop is a bishop that's stuck behind its own pawns and can't really do.
Move! Move!
In this position, for example, the bishop on b7 has to sniff the two pawns' butts and is really sad because he can't contribute and be a good citizen. Even if he tries to move to c8, he gets blocked by another pawn on c6. Things would be a lot better if this bishop is chilling on b5 where the bishop prevents white from castling kingside, but also can take the queen at any moment. Another example is this position. Seems simple enough? A lot of you low elo beginners out there would push this pawn and block your freaking bishop.
What the wrong with you?
Move the bishop out first and then push the pawn. Develop quickly. Develop or die, said some grandmaster probably. This principle means you should get your bishops, knights and queen off the back rank, as well as castle to connect your rooks as soon as possible. When you do, your king is super safe, and your pieces are ready to smash the opponent's king. Targeting holes. A hole is a square that can no longer be controlled by any friendly pawns. When you play g3 for example, the pawn no longer defends h3, and there are no other pawns that could fulfill that job. When your opponent has holes in their position, it's a good idea to put a knight there to blockade the pawn. Black's position is cramped as f***, and if you can put your queen here while it's protected, that'd be KO.
Should have watched your step!
Endgame king is valuable. The king is pretty much a loser in the opening. However, in the endgame it becomes a god, and you should bring it out as soon as possible. In this position, white is completely winning, because white's king is much more active, and will very soon capture these three black pawns. Avoid double pawns. Double pawns happen when two pawns of the same color are on the same file. When this occurs, the pawns can't defend each other, and are very prone to attack. It's generally a good idea to avoid double pawns, and even though people have attempted to make the legendary tripled pawns, things usually don't end well for them. Back rank mate. As the name suggests, here the enemy king is trapped on the last rank behind its own pawns, and gets checkmated by either the rook or the queen.
Don't worry, king. We are protecting you.
Thanks, pawn.
Hello, king.
You fools. I can't move because you guys are blocking me.
Ladder mate. Also known as lawnmower mate, this pattern involves two rooks, or a rook, and a queen working together to checkmate the king. Passed pawn. A passed pawn is a pawn that has no enemy pawns in front of it, or on adjacent files that can stop it from being promoted. Blocking forks, smartly. In a situation like this you might be thinking,
Yo, my bishop is cooked!
But actually, all you gotta do is not panic, chill, and look at the situation a little better. Then, you will see that your knight can perfectly block the check, and defend your bishop at the same time. Another example is this one. Black tries to fork white and thinks he's Gucci. White decides to counter with a discovery check, and grabs the knight too. Break open the center. What do you do when you've developed your pieces, castled, and everything is chill? Easy. You want to go ahead and break up the center. You do this by pushing pawns forward, which makes shit happen in the middle of the board. In this position, you can push your e-pawn forward, breaking the center up and creating absolute chaos. Never trade a good bishop for a bad knight. If you are trading your good bishop for a bad knight, what you even doing with your life?
Hey, do you want to trade cards?
It looks lame.
But it's holographic.
It should be rare. Okay. I activate my card. Oh, I think I was scammed.
In this position, this bishop is chilling on g2, controlling an important diagonal and also protecting the king. It'd be dumb to trade this bishop for the knight on c6 that ain't doing much at the moment. Never trade a good knight for a bad bishop. This is the same, but uno reverse. If you got a really sick knight that can jump anywhere he wants, and the opponent has a pretty crappy bishop, of course you don't want to trade them off.
Finally, I developed my bad knight.
Hey, buddy, I found another holographic card. Do you want to trade?
Give me my old card back. I'll kill you.
In this position, the d6 knight is a monster. It completely restricts the movement of black's pieces, and black can't do much. The black bishop, however, sucks because it's staring at two black pawns, and can't even move. So if you trade your beautiful knight for this bishop, you should quit chess. Here's an endgame example. This bishop sucks because all of white pawns are on light squares, so the bishop can't even touch them. White here plays knight to e6 check, controlling all three squares. That black bishop can stay to protect the h6 pawn. Black tries his best to defend the pawn, but the bishop sucks too much to do so. Connect rooks. Rooks are stronger as a pair. Connecting rooks means removing any pieces that stand between them so that they see each other. For example, in this position, the queen can move out of the way so the rooks protect each other. Checkmate. Checkmate occurs when a king is in check, has no legal moves to move to, and there is also no way to capture the piece checking the king or block the check. When this happens, the side that is checking wins. Skewer. A skewer is similar to a pin but in reverse. The more valuable piece is in front and must move, leaving the less valuable piece behind, exposed to capture.
Honey, watch out!
Are you okay, my queen? Thank God she's gone. She talks too much. Can we do the ankle thing again tonight, baby?
Of course, sweetie.
Be careful when pushing pawns. Pawns are super weak alone, and they can easily get grabbed. Once a pawn moves forward, it can never go backward.
Do you want to see something interesting?
Oh, of course. I like interesting things.
I'm an idiot. I sent a pawn image. Take it back. Take it back.
Whoa, I want to see the promoted version too.
In this position, white got too excited and moved all of his pawns forward. These pawns are super weak, and black can fork two pawns by a simple move. Knight to f6. Passed pawn. Passed pawns can be a fatal weapon during endgames. In this situation, white can take advantage of black's open king and play rook to a8. Black's rook has to capture the pawn, as otherwise it will promote. Unfortunately, white can skewer the rook right afterward. Activate your king. In the endgame, your king is your main homie. The rules say that whoever gets their king into the endgame first will be 1,000,000% more likely to win. Like here, both kings are not activated, so the position is a draw. But if your king is in the center, your opponent is as your king will grab all those pawns on the queen side.
Sir, are you all right?
Call an ambulance! Call an ambulance! I think you need an ambulance, not me! No, I'm fine.
Save a trapped knight. Knights can jump around and be very unpredictable, but sometimes, they can be trapped. In this position, your knight is kinda fucked. He's attacked and can't move anywhere. Instead of crying like a bitch about how you lost your knight, you can push your d-pawn to d5 to protect him. If your opponent is high IQ enough to know of en passant, the knight can take back and retreat safely. Tactic. A short sequence of moves that results in a tangible gain.
I can also trade and take, and if takes, I take. If takes, queen e2, queen h4, g3, knight g3, check, c6, queen b7, knight h1, king there. I don't know what's going on. I'm just gonna castle.
Be careful when castling. Now we all know that castling is a sick move and will make our king cozy F. But you gotta know when and how to do it right. Here we see that white is launching a crazy strong attack on the king side. If you castle right now, you're stupid. Why would we castle into an attack? What you want to do is, chill, develop your pieces and see how the situation unfolds. When opponent delays castling, open up the position. If your opponent keeps trying to attack on the wing, and your king has castled, you should strike back in the center, and make the opponent's king naked. In this position, black is trying to shove these pawns down white's throat. He forgets to castle though. So white's best move is pawn to d5, attacking both the knight and the pawn. If black takes the pawn, now the king is in the open. White can follow up with a check, and then keep pressuring the pin on e7. Black is toasted. Avoid isolated pawns. Isolated pawns are pawns that have no pawns nearby to protect it. These kinds of pawns are very easy to kill, and usually big targets for your opponent. A strategy to get rid of isolated pawns is to sacrifice it to ruin your opponent's pawn structure, and then capture them back later. Easier to attack than defend. Just like how it's always easier to throw punches than block them, it's also easier to smash your opponent than get smashed. In this position, white sacrifices a freaking bishop and then another knight. Despite being down on 2 pieces, white wins this position 50% of the time. This is because white has a very aggressive attacking plan, which makes black more likely to blunder. Fork. A fork happens when a single piece attacks 2 or more of the opponent's pieces at the same time. In this position, white can move this knight here to fork black's rooks, which leads to a material advantage. Railroad. The railroad mate looks like an unstoppable train of a rook and a queen, moving along a rail track to checkmate the enemy king. In this position, white crushes black's king, and there's nothing he can do about it. Sacrifice. A sacrifice happens in chess when one player intentionally gives up material to achieve a larger goal. In this game, Paul Murphy sacrifices his queen to deliver a stunning checkmate. Rook to d8. Rooks go behind passed pawns. If you have a passed pawn, put a rook behind it. This makes sure that the pawn is protected while the rook remains active and can do other things.
I'm not sure I can take them all.
Don't worry, bro. I got your back.
Promotion. When your pawn reaches the farthest rank on the opposite side of the board, you can turn it into a queen, knight, bishop, or rook. In over-the-board chess, a new queen, if another queen is also still on the board, is represented by an upside-down rook. Double-hand castling. Castling can also only be done if the king and rook are moved using the same hand. Rooks should control open files. There ain't nothing that rooks like better than an open file. Except, maybe him? In this position, white is winning because white completely controls the opened e file. White's next move will be rook to e7 check, and black pawns will all disappear very quickly. Here's another example. The 2 rooks are staring at each other. In general, it's not a good idea to take the black rook because you'll let the other black rook control the only open e file. It'd be better to play bishop here, attacking the black rook to force black to the trade. Trade a weak piece for a stronger one. This of course doesn't mean try to trade your pawn for your opponent's queen. It means that if your opponent's got a really active piece that is causing a shit ton of problems, and you've got a pretty crappy piece not doing anything, you could try and trade them off. For example, white's fianchettoed bishop is a big problem, but you can offer a trade by moving your knight away.
This ends now, bishop.
You? Ha 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 ha. A mere knight? What do you think you can do?
Wakanda forever.
When you see a good move, look for a better move. When you find a good move and think you are Hikaru, always stop for a second and look for a better move that will make you look like Magnus Carlsen. In this position, a rookie would take the rook and feel pretty good about himself. Hikaru would immediately realize that knight to e6 is an immediate KO. However, only Magnus Carlsen would know that an impassant move is available and take advantage. Don't attack without control of the center. If you have good control of the center, it is a great time to attack. In this position, white can harass black with his pawn and kick the knights back to passive squares. After that, he can follow up with some more attacks, and black is absolutely toasted. On the other hand, if you have no control over the center, attacking is a bad idea. Don't trade bishops for knights. As a rule of thumb, bishops are usually better than knights because they are long-range pieces, and can sometimes unexpectedly f*** your opponent from afar. In this position, even though you can trade your bishop for the knight, creating double pawns for your opponent, you probably shouldn't. Knights before bishops. It is generally better to move knights first because you can pretty much bet money that the knights will go here or here. Bishops, however, have a lot more options, so you should wait and decide later. Fool's mate. Fool's mate is the fastest checkmate in chess, but it only works for absolute idiots.
She's not gonna see this coming.
Smothered mate. This is one of the most popular and beautiful checkmates in chess. It occurs when a lone knight mates the enemy king, whose escape squares are blocked. Know the right time to ignore principles. And of course, if you want to be a good chess player, there will be times when these principles will have to be ignored in order to make the best move in the situation. Have fun, and bad luck. Just resign. If you just resign, nobody can attack your king anymore. Your ego might be hurt, but your king isn't. If you want to live a beta male life, I highly recommend checking this approach out. Have courage. Finally, you need courage. Courage is not the absence of fear. It's seeing the absence of multiple of your pieces, and still chilling. When attacking in chess, you might see several pieces disappear from the board, but still need to keep your cool and play good moves. That's why attacking chess is not for the faint of heart. Take risks, sacrifice all your pieces, and lose the game.
What the f is this?
Wakanda forever!